Imagine a game of Russian roulette. Each chamber represents a potential source, a pill, a powder, a chance encounter. Anyone could be the last. Now imagine that the gun isn't pointed at you, but at your child, your sibling, your friend. This isn't a scene from a thriller movie. This is the chilling reality of fentanyl in America today. It's a crisis that transcends headlines. It's a shadow war playing out in our streets, our homes, and tragically in our families. It's a global issue disguised as a local tragedy. But this crisis didn't materialize out of thin air. It's deeply entangled with a complex web of international relations, specifically the trade tensions simmering between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. In recent years, trade disputes over agriculture, manufacturing, and energy have created a volatile environment ripe for exploitation. Criminal organizations have seized this opportunity, using established trade routes to smuggle fentanyl precursors and the finished product into the U.S. The U.S. government has put pressure on Mexico to crack down on fentanyl production and trafficking. However, the cartel's influence and the economic incentives are powerful. Understanding the geopolitics is crucial to grasping the sheer scale of the challenge. To truly understand the fentanyl crisis, we need to rewind the clock to its origins. Fentanyl wasn't born in a clandestine drug lab. It was actually created in 1959 by chemist Paul Janssen under the request of his company, Janssen Pharmaceutica. The drug was first introduced for medical use in the 1960s as an intravenous anesthetic. It was a revolutionary painkiller, far more potent than morphine, offering relief to patients suffering from severe pain, particularly after surgery. However, its very potency would become its downfall. Fentanyl works by binding to opioid receptors in the brain, which control pain and emotions. Because fentanyl is so potent, it takes very little to produce significant effects. That's also what makes it so dangerous. Fentanyl is estimated to be 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. Even a tiny amount, as little as 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of salt, can be lethal for someone who isn't used to opioids. That's why accidental overdoses are so common, especially when fentanyl is mixed with other drugs like heroin, cocaine, or pressed into counterfeit pills. The illicit fentanyl trade began to take off in the 2000s, with drug cartels recognizing the immense profit potential. Fentanyl is relatively easy and cheap to produce compared to other opioids like heroin. It's also easier to transport because of its potency. Smaller amounts have a much bigger impact. The availability of precursor chemicals, often sourced from China, and the ease of synthesizing fentanyl in makeshift labs created a perfect storm. Cartels could produce massive quantities of fentanyl and flood the market with it, driving down prices and increasing addiction rates. The Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, are the two primary criminal organizations driving the fentanyl trade. They control key trafficking routes and have established sophisticated networks for producing, distributing, and smuggling fentanyl into the United States. The profits generated by fentanyl are astronomical, fueling corruption, violence, and instability in Mexico. The cartels wield immense power, influencing local politics and law enforcement, making it incredibly difficult to disrupt their operations. There's a lot of misinformation circulating about fentanyl. It's important to separate fact from fiction. Touching fentanyl will not cause an overdose unless you ingest it or it is absorbed through your skin. While it is always wise to use caution, people who are not using drugs are unlikely to overdose from incidental exposure. It's crucial to know the signs of an opioid overdose, which include slowed or stopped breathing, pinpoint pupils, unresponsiveness, and bluish lips or skin. Naloxone, Narcan, is a life-saving medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. It's available over the counter in many states, and it's essential to have it on hand if you or someone you know is at risk. Behind the statistics, there are real people, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters, whose lives have been shattered by fentanyl. These are stories of loss, grief, and unimaginable pain. But they're also stories of resilience, hope, and the unwavering determination to fight back against this crisis. Many organizations are working to raise awareness, provide treatment, and support families affected by fentanyl. Their work is essential in turning the tide against this epidemic. There's no easy solution to the fentanyl crisis. It requires a multifaceted approach that addresses the supply chain, reduces demand, and provides treatment for addiction. Some advocate for stricter border controls and increased law enforcement efforts to disrupt the flow of fentanyl. Others emphasize the need for harm reduction strategies, such as safe injection sites and fentanyl test strips. And almost everyone agrees that treatment for addiction must be more accessible and affordable. Here are some interesting facts about fentanyl. Fact 1. Fentanyl is not one single substance. There are hundreds of fentanyl analogs, each slightly different in chemical structure and potency. Some of these analogs are even more dangerous than fentanyl itself. Fact 2. Fentanyl is not just found in pills and powders. It's also been found in marijuana, vaping cartridges, and even candy. This means that people can unknowingly consume fentanyl without ever intending to take an opioid. Fact 3. Fentanyl is incredibly difficult to detect. It's odorless, tasteless, and invisible to the naked eye. That's why fentanyl test strips are so important. They can help people determine whether a substance contains fentanyl before they use it. Fact 4. Fentanyl is used by veterinarians. It can be used as a tranquilizer, but they are much lower in potency. Fact 5. Over 150 people die every day from overdoses related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. The fentanyl crisis is not just an American problem. It's a global challenge that requires international cooperation. China is a major source of precursor chemicals used to produce fentanyl. Mexico is the primary producer of fentanyl that is trafficked into the United States, and other countries like India are also playing a role in the supply chain. Amidst the current global trade tensions, Canada has faced U.S. sanctions, often viewed as collateral damage in the U.S. president's efforts to disrupt the fentanyl supply chain. While the majority of fentanyl remains within the U.S., Canada also suffers from this crisis, with a small percentage crossing the border. It's important to acknowledge that fentanyl originating in the U.S. also enters Canada, highlighting the complex nature of this issue. The United States is working with other countries to crack down on fentanyl production and trafficking, but more needs to be done to address the root causes of the crisis, including poverty, addiction, and lack of economic opportunity. Despite the grim statistics and the heartbreaking stories, there is hope. People are recovering from addiction, families are finding support, and communities are coming together to fight back against the fentanyl crisis. By raising awareness, promoting treatment, and advocating for change, we can turn the tide against this epidemic. It won't be easy, but it is possible. We must act now to protect our loved ones and build a future free from the scourge of fentanyl. The fentanyl crisis is a complex problem, but it's not insurmountable. By educating ourselves, supporting those affected, and advocating for change, we can make a difference. Share this video with your friends and family to raise awareness. Click the links in the description below to learn more and get involved. Together we can save lives and build a brighter future.